Hello, everyone, and welcome to Exploring the Unsolved with Melissa, where we dive into the most perplexing true crime mysteries that refuse to give us answers. And welcome to the final episode of Tragic Wary, tragic cases of couples and families whose cases remain unsolved. And next month, we're focusing on femicide cases, cases where women's rights were violated in one way or another, as March is Women's History Month. On this episode, on a cold wintry night in February 2005, Danielle Imbo and Richard Petrone Jr. vanished without a trace.
Subscribe.
The couple had just spent an evening together at a bar in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But as the night wore on, their lives would take a dark and unexpected turn. This is the story of the disappearance, a case that has baffled investigators and left their families searching for answers for over a decade. It was February 19th, 2005. Danielle Oprah, a 34-year-old mother of two, and Richard Petrone Jr., a 35-year-old truck driver, had just spent a casual evening together at Imbo's, a popular bar in South Philadelphia. The two had been dating several months, but this was on and off. Danielle was going through a separation with her husband. We'll get to him more later. And Richard had been out with friends that night, and Danielle had joined him after a long week of work. She asked to spend some time with her family before this, and decided to join Richard, who was also there with some friends. By 11:30 p.m., the couple left the bar together, both of them in good spirits. They were kissing, enjoying the music of the club, getting ready, and it looks like they were going to resume the romance once again. Danielle was last seen in her black leather jacket. Richard was dressed in a black-blue shirt, with his signature thick mustache. What they didn't know was that these would be the last moments anyone would see them. They climbed into Richard's 2001 Dodge Dakota pickup truck. With no clear destination, they drove off into the night, but what should have been a simple drive home would soon spiral into one of the most puzzling disappearances in Philadelphia history. Let's look at the couples first. Richard came from an Italian family and was 35 years old. He had brown hair and blue eyes and stood tall at 5'9". He had a tattoo of the word Angela on his left arm and a cloud tattoo on his right. And he worked at the family bakery. He was also a devoted father to his daughter, who was 14 years old and was the only son of his family. Daniela was 34 years old. She had brown hair and hazel eyes and 5'5". She also had one known child, an 18-month-old son. She had tattoos of flowers on her lower back, and she worked in mortgages and loans. And this is one thing about Danielle that might surprise you. She was actually a lover of novels. Some of them were true crime. This is a creepy coincidence how the woman who loved crime novels would end up in a crime herself. Or allegedly at this point. They were friends for a very long time. And Daniela was married, but she was in the process of getting a divorce. She was separated from her husband at this time. And we'll get to him in the theories. And the couple, like I said before, was on and off. They did not celebrate Valentine's Day together, but they still remained good friends. It wasn't like, we dated, we hate each other, we're not going to be friends anymore. They were more just a casual fling here and there. Richard was also a devoted father to his daughter. So there's that too. As the hours passed, Danielle and Richard did not arrive at either of their houses. By morning, their families were frantic. In fact, the first person who noticed the alarm was actually Joe, Daniela's separated husband at this point, because they were still in the process of getting divorced. She was going to drop off their son. We don't know what happened there. We don't know if he contacted the family, but by this point, when Danielle did not show up to pick up her son, didn't go to Richard's house, did not go to Joe's house, was not at her home, that's when the family drew the alarm. Unlike the police, who typically wait 48 hours before launching for missing people, more than when there were adults involved, Danielle's family didn't waste any time. John Imbo's, Danielle's brother, and Richard's father, Richard Petrone Jr., immediately began searching the city streets and highways. They drove through the streets of Philadelphia, even checked the waterways and bridges. Walt Whip, Ben Franklin, and Betty Rose bridges, but no sign of the couples were found. They lost missing posters, they launched billboards. No evidence was found. All we know is that they left the bar and were not seen since. They also searched rivers and hills. But that's where things took a turn. There's surveillance, CCTV and surveillance cameras were off these highways, and some of the world one, and yet they were never caught on surveillance videos driving. It was like they left the bar and they suddenly disappeared into thin air, and no one knows what happened. There was no credit card activity found, zero activity on their bank accounts, nothing from their phones. This is the early 2000s. It wasn't like we had iPhone. Flip phones were the main thing by this point. The tolls and bridge cameras showed that they did not cross back into New Jersey, which one of them lived. So this was terrifying for the family. Something's not right. Where are they? They are not on surveillance. They're not here. What's going on? They were not seen on any CCTV footage. Multiple routes they could have taken back to New Jersey, but they were not spotted or seen at any of them by no web people, witnesses at the time. It's not like they had anything. This is a case where really there's not much evidence or leads to really follow. Desperate, John Imbo took matters into his own hands and hired a camping police officer to fly a helicopter and scour the city from above. But despite the search efforts, nothing came up. No one has seen them after they left the bar. The couple didn't appear on the toll bridges or cameras like I said before. And when investigators looked into their bank accounts and credit cards or cell phone statements, nothing unusual surfaced. So we know that their credit cards were not used during this time. What could have happened to Danielle, Imbo, and Richard Petrone Jr.? Where are they gone and why? After so much searching, as time went on, now we're going to talk about a little bit of Joe. Joe is actually a suspect in this case. We'll get to more of the theory, but there's some background from us on Joe. Joe and Danielle were married, and shortly after she gave birth to their son, Joe went to the Super Bowl when Danielle was sick, leaving her and her son alone, which I could expect, like this is a jerk move on his part. He came back to her saying he met someone else and went on divorce. She was, of course, hurt by this, most likely. She was determined to make the best situation in life for her son, so they received a divorce. When his new relationship, surprisingly, did not end, it ended, he asked Danielle for a second chance, leaving Danielle confused with the whole situation. First, you leave me and my son alone when I'm sick so you can go to the Super Bowl. Second, you come back saying you want a divorce because you met someone else. Number 3, now that this woman has left you, you want a second chance? It doesn't look like there's a few red flags there. I'm just gonna say it now. So when looking at Joe, we do know that Joe was aware of Richard, most likely because they're friends. He would have met him time by time. Maybe he was doing another guest at their wedding. We don't really know for sure. But they did come to an argument at one point, most likely about Danielle, because if things worked out between Richard and Danielle, remember, if things are all good because they have a child, it's custody that's a big thing for divorcing. Who's going to get custody of their son? With him having these 3 red flags, in my opinion, and him and Danielle having met Richard, usually when a partner usually one of the parents is in a more civil relationship and can provide for their child, that's who the person is going to get custody to. Eventually, the FBI got involved, and a $15,000 reward was offered for any information attributed to their disappearance. And the FBI getting involved was a big deal, but they had a video which was distributed across the United States with information related to the case. The FBI believed this was a murder-for-hire plot, but no, they have not shown evidence as to why they believe so. What evidence they uncovered, what evidence maybe the police uncover. This is most likely to prevent any loopholes in the investigation. They don't want to tip the killer off. There has been several theories that have been ruled out. Their exes were ruled out as suspects, but they're still going to be on our theories list. They ran off together. There's no evidence. I don't think they would have left their children behind. That's something that's very strictly ruled out quickly by both families, and a murder-suicide. But all of those theories have been ruled out. In the aftermath of this tragic case, both families blamed each other. The FBI is back investigating this case, which is good news. They're back. They're going to try to solve this case and get closer to the families. Most likely, hopefully, they find the bodies so the families can have a proper funeral, memorial, things like that. There are many theories and possibilities. One possible theory is that they accidentally dove into the Delaware River. But for those familiar with this area, this seems unlikely. The streets near the river don't provide easy access. Even with a strong current, it wouldn't have been so hard to miss such a significant event. Another theory suggests that they were carjacked, perhaps a real attack, followed by their murder, with the truck stolen and taken to a chop shop for parts. In 2004 alone, 3,000 to 13,000 vehicles were stolen in the Philadelphia area. The idea has gained some traction, but after further investigation, no evidence was found to support this theory of a carjacking.
Making 2 people and a truck disappear with no witnesses and no evidence of any kind for 9 years suggests methodical planning. It's possible a perpetrator could just get lucky, but it's more likely just what it looks like. Someone behind this knew what they were doing.
Could have this been a murder-for-hire plot? It's a certain possibility. Like I said before, this is the FBI's leading theory, but if so, who would want to hurt Danielle and Richard, and why? Investigators looked those closest to the couple. Richard's friends, Anthony and Michelle, were questioned multiple times, but despite being the last to see them, no evidence has linked them to their disappearance. The next suspect, Danielle's ex-husband, Joe. He was 50 miles away at a children's birthday party at the night of the disappearance with his stepfather, a former NYPD officer, and has an alibi. Joe also took a polygraph, but these results were inconclusive. Yet during this investigation, some unsettling details emerged. Joe had access to Danielle's voicemail and had listened to her messages on several occasions in the months leading up to her disappearance. He also made several threatening calls to Richard, warning him to stop seeing his wife. This has made him the #1 suspect in the eyes of most likely public and family opinion, especially since his motive would be he wants to get back together, and Richard's seeing his wife when they're not really divorced. So in his mind, Richard's trying to interfere with his marriage, even though he broke that off when he ran off with someone else, when he met someone else, I should say. So Joe has plenty of reason in his mind, to hurt Richard and Danielle. Despite these revelations, no solid evidence tied Joe to the crime. He adamantly denied any involvement, and no further suspect was identified at this time. My theory is, of course, it was at the end. So my theory, the last theory, is that I believe this was done by someone they knew. Someone they knew who wanted to hurt them. By revenge, payback, no. But the goal would have been to hurt the couple, and ultimately by the end, they succeeded in doing so. Their goal could have been a simple motive. It could have been Joe. It could have been Richard's ex-partner who was interviewed and was ruled out. It could have been a friend, but this was someone with a personal grudge against the couple, knew the area well, and knew how to get rid of it. The motive would have been custody. If they're partners, custody of the child. If it was a friend, it could have been a reason that not even their families knew at the time. Either way, I think this crime was done by someone that personally knew them. As the years passed, the case has become a cold one. No developments, no answers. But in 2021, hope was renewed when the FBI made a public statement.
An extensive investigation has generated some promising leads, but neither Danielle, Richard, nor their vehicle has ever been located.
Then, in March 2022, a glimmer of hope emerged. A private search and recovery dive team known as Adventures with Purpose joined the investigation, specializing in underwater searches, and they've known to recover quite a few remains of missing people over the years. The team conducted multiple dives in the Delaware River, yet, despite their best efforts, no evidence was found. Yet they have stated, though they'll look at other rivers, maybe even real ones, for answers. Currently, the case remains open, investigated by a collective team of local and federal agents. The FBI, Philadelphia Police Department, Marlborough Police, New Jersey State Police, and the Birmingham County Prosecutor's Office. The reward money has been lifted to $50,000. Rewards with anyone with information that could lead to the discovery of Danielle or Richard, or those responsible for the disappearance. Yet, despite years of searching, questions remain. What happened to them? Where did they go? And more hauntingly, who could have had the motive to make them disappear so completely? John Imbo, Danielle's brother, has never given up hope. He continues to search for answers even after all these years. He once said,
"If you've ever had that feeling that something's wrong, something's just not right, we have that feeling from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed every day."
I will imagine this is his sister. He could protect her that night. He knows something's wrong. He knows something bad happened, but he can't find her. It's not going to be over to the families until they get closure, specifically until they have the bodies. Danielle and Richard Petrone Jr. are still missing to this day, and their families are still waiting for the truth. This has been the story of the mysterious disappearance of Danielle Imbo and Richard Petrone Jr. If you have any information, please contact your local authorities or the FBI. Their family needs answers. You can hear from the words from Danielle's brother. Something's not right. Someone knows what happened, and that person could be you. Make that call. The smallest tip could lead to an arrest and the bodies being found, and the families given the closure of what truly happened that night. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode, where we continue to explore the cases that haunt our world. Be careful and stay safe out there.